Dear students, welcome back to the second part of Chapter 9 Percentage Part 3 Notes. Okay, so we'll be looking at the additional questions for this part of the notes. So the first question that we'll be looking at will be exercise 6. So basically what happens is in this question we are given a receipt, right, issued by a restaurant, and in the receipt we see the different items ordered, right? And let's look at what the question wants us to do. The first question requires us to find the subtotal amount. Okay, the subtotal amount is basically the price of all the items that you have ordered or purchased, and we would sum these values up. Okay, so if you were to find out how much you have, we will firstly write down the equation containing all of the amount that we have paid for, right? And summing this up carefully, you should have 44.6, and that would be the answer for the subtotal amount over here. Okay, so now next, the question wants us to find the service charge. The service charge amount is basically a charge of 10% on top of your subtotal amount. So in this case, how much do we have to pay for the service charge? Very simple, that would be 10% of 44.60, and that would give us $4.46. Okay, so that would be the service charge. Next, let's look at the next part. The next part tells us, requires us to find the GST amount. And what is the GST? Okay, so if you recall, GST is known as the goods and services tax. And what we do to this tax is basically applying it on, as the name suggests, goods and services. So the amount of money you pay for your goods is found under the subtotal amount. So that would be part A. And of course, the services would then refer to the service charge amount. Okay, and that would simply be B. So when we would like to find the GST, the first thing we need to do is simply to sum, okay, to sum the subtotal amount and the service charge, and that gives us $49.60. Next, we would apply the GST of 7% to this sum over here. So how much would that be? That would be 7 over 100 multiplied by 49.60, and that would give us, let's see, that would give us, okay, let me just shift this slightly higher, $3.4342. And of course we would like to correct this to 2 decimal place. Okay, so technically you should be writing the equal sign below, right? Because I'm lack of space, so I will just simply write here, this would be $3.43, right? Corrected to 2 decimal place for money. Okay, so that would be the GST amount. Next, the last part of this question requires us to find the total amount, which is rounded to the nearest 5 cents. Okay, so the total amount would simply be the sum of the subtotal, service charge, and the GST. Okay, so we see that the subtotal and service charge would simply be 49.06 as found over here, and finally adding the GST of $3.42, that gives us $52.49. But rounding it off to the nearest 5 cents, that gives us $52.50. So nearest 5 cents. Okay, and that would be the answer for this part. Alright, let's look at exercise 7. Exercise 7 requires us, okay, to do similar things. So let's look at what the receipt says first. So the receipt shows Star Supermarket, and certain items were bought from the supermarket. Right. The first part A, requires us to find the subtotal amount. Likewise, the subtotal amount would be the sum of all the items that you have purchased in this receipt. So summing them up, okay, you would have you need to write down, okay, your workings to be like that, and finally pressing your calculator, right, and evaluating the answer carefully, you should arrive at $28.69. Okay, so now we're done with part A. Let's look at part B. The part B requires us to find the total amount. Okay, in order to find out what is the total amount, if you were to read the next part, you realize that the total amount is simply, right, the answer for part A rounded down to the nearest 5 cents. So rounding this answer down to the nearest 5 cents, we would simply get 28.65. Okay, so this one just requires you to state how much is it, right, without any workings, but you need to round it down correctly. Okay, so let's look at part C. Part C requires us to find the rounding adjustment. And what's that? That is simply the difference between the subtotal and the total amount. Okay, so if you were to subtract them, you realize that the difference is 4 cents, but because we are rounding down, right, we would have this negative sign, so the rounding adjustment is negative 0.04, so basically negative 4 cents, as seen from the difference between part A and B. Alright, for part D, it requires us to find the change. So how much do we get back? So how much did we pay first? So looking at the receipt, we gave $50.70 cash. Okay, so the change would simply be the difference between the cash, which is how much you pay, and the subtotal amount. Sorry, it would be the difference between the cash and the rounded amount, right? Because we want to round it down. Initially, we had this amount and then we round it down. So it must be the final amount. So the total minus, right, the total amount, sorry. So this would be $22.05. Okay. So part E requires us to do what? It requires us to find the total amount exclusive of GST. So if you were to look at the receipt carefully, right, they mention that these prices are inclusive of GST. It means that these prices are inflated. Okay, so what we want to do is to find the prices without the GST. So what are we dealing with? We would say that the prices inclusive of GST would be 170%, and it represents the subtotal amount. Okay, so let's find out how much 1% represents. It represents 28.69 divided by 107, right? And if you would like to find the total amount exclusive of GST, that would simply be 100%. So we will simply find 100%. Okay, so this 1% multiplied by 100, and then you get $26.81, right? Corrected to 2 decimal places. The last part of the question requires us to find the GST amount. Okay, and we realize that the GST is 7%. So we know that 1% represents this amount. So basically, the GST would then be 7% of this. So 7% multiplied by this amount over here, right? And if you were to evaluate your answers carefully, right, you realize that you get $1.88 corrected to 2 decimal places. That would be the answer for part F. Okay, we have come to the last question. Last question, exercise 8, gives us information about a food delivery company, right? So basically we understand that, you know, if you order your food through the website, you get 10% off when you apply this promo code, right? And if you were to use their mobile application, you get more discount, In fact, you get 20% discount, okay? And if you were to use this promo code, right? So let's read the question. This person, Karen, she uses this 2 promo code to order a pizza. And the difference between the two prices is $2.80 for the same pizza, right? So what do you realize? You realize that the difference between 20 and 10% is 10%, okay? So 10% would then represent $2.80, okay, because it's the difference. So what do we do next? We find 1%. So 1% represents 280 divided by 10, right? And of course, if I would like to find a single pizza, the price of a single pizza, we are looking at 100%. So we will simply multiply our answer over here by 100. So that gives us $28. Okay, are we done yet? This is simply the price of a pizza. The question wants what? The question wants you to find the total amount Karen has to pay if she orders 2 pizzas, right? And under which condition? Okay, using the mobile application. So basically, she will receive 20% off 2 pizzas. So can we next calculate how much does 2 pizza cost? So the cost of 2 pizzas would simply be $28 multiplied by 2. That would be $56. Finally, we apply 20% off to the price of $56. So the total amount paid would simply be 80%, alright, of 56. So 80 over 100 multiplied by 56. Okay, that gives us, how much does that give us? That gives us $44.80. Okay, and that would be the end of this part of the video.